A few weeks ago, I observed an individual entering my residence through the recently installed doorbell camera. However, I was unable to discern their subsequent departure. Intriguingly, the recorded footage was removed the following day. This prompted me to assume the role of a detective and commence an investigation into my soon-to-be ex-wife. My wife was aware of my suspicions and realized that I was becoming increasingly skeptical of her actions. She believed that I had discovered evidence, likely from the recently installed doorbell camera, that she had traced. I was in the process of setting up in-home cameras and recording devices. However, she eventually confessed and acknowledged that she had been engaged in an extramarital affair for approximately a year. She stated that she had been helping my elderly mother for the majority of that time. She admitted that I deserved better and discussed the possibility of being fair in our divorce by agreeing to sell our home and divide the proceeds. The most probable outcome is that I will receive alimony for a period of time or a lump sum payment, which will be divided between the majority of the debt and the proceeds from the sale of our home. This will leave us with a modest sum to start anew. I find this outcome to be highly disappointing and somewhat anticlimactic. I would even go so far as to say that it is unfair. I must admit that I allowed my anger to build up over time. I had intended to exact retribution in some way, but there were few potential partners for her extramarital relationship. There was no one to expose because her partner was either single or divorced, and he seemed to know more about the state of my marriage than I did. The discrepancy was significant, and it is likely that she had engaged in similar behavior previously. However, I chose not to dwell on the matter and prevent further harm. This situation arises at a challenging time for me, as I am currently dealing with elder care concerns and lack the energy and motivation to engage in conflict. She pledged to attempt to reconcile, but we both recognize that there is a profound sadness and damage between us. She is aware of the impact of my previous experiences of infidelity, which occurred over a span of 25 years, even before we met. These experiences have left me with significant emotional distress, and certain wounds have not fully healed. Recently, I have questioned the fundamental nature of our relationship. I have come to the conclusion that the relationship was, in fact, a rebound. However, I am a determined individual, and when I make a commitment, I am fully invested. I may have acted prematurely. Currently, I do not believe that people or relationships are worthwhile. I am unable to envision a future where I would trust another individual. Consequently, I have decided to end the relationship. There will be no conflict, no vengeance, and no exposure. There is no rationale for further action. The dissolution of two lives, marked by callousness and indifference, has left me with the task of reconstructing my identity without the influence of pride or ego. This represents yet another failure in my life. The life I once knew has come to an end, and I am merely going through the motions, performing tasks without thought or intention. I have no desire to return home. However, I must first prepare the house for sale and subsequently locate an apartment. I am uncertain as to my desired place of residence. My recent experiences have been so unfortunate that I have effectively wasted over half of my life on an unfulfilling relationship. The future appears to hold little promise, and the only reason I get out of bed is to care for my parents. The absence of children is beneficial in that it eliminates the necessity of contacting her following the divorce. However, it will take time to overcome the emotional distress caused by her voice. Each time I view our photographs and recall the enjoyable times we shared, I am reminded of the harm I have caused. I am perplexed by my inability to move forward from this past relationship. I find myself ruminating on past events, questioning my actions and feelings, and experiencing feelings of inadequacy. I am struggling to understand why I have been mistreated and why my life has been so challenging. I am now on the losing end, elderly, shattered, and feel unworthy of this miserable life. I have no hopes or dreams. I am merely ruminating on my own ideas and thoughts from late yesterday night. Despite my request that she not contact me, she has not done so. I intended for her to be aware of this, but it seems she was already aware. There has been no indication that she is doing well without me. It is unclear whether she is simply pretending that it is a normal Tuesday or if she is experiencing a period of grief. In the past, we discussed the issue of our lifeless bedroom. I noted that approximately 10 to 15 years ago, we had a significant number of premature births resulting from in vitro fertilization. After that, I was hesitant to become too close to her, fearing that I might accidentally become pregnant and experience a similar tragedy. This led to the need for mental health treatment for both of us, and we only recovered from our deepest depressions with the help of others and a certain degree of luck. After she admitted to infidelity for over a year, I responded with a strongly worded, emotionally charged statement that was inappropriate and unproductive. I am contemplating sending her an apology text for that statement, but I am uncertain if voicing my anxieties from over a year ago caused her to relive that awful moment and then cheat on me. I informed my therapist about my anxieties and we discussed strategies for overcoming them. We concluded that it was not the appropriate time to bring it up with my wife. Perhaps she blames me for my wife and I have been experiencing difficulties in our intimate relationship. I believe that my actions may have contributed to this issue. After some reflection, I contacted my wife to express my regret for my previous remarks. I acknowledged that my statements were hurtful and untrue. While I am saddened by the current state of our relationship, I recognize that my actions were inappropriate. I believe it is essential for us to address this matter with maturity and respect, not with the immaturity and immoderation that characterized our interactions in our early years together. Some of our interactions at the time of our initial encounter. I informed her that I hoped she had found what she needed and concluded the conversation. The previous night, my wife contacted me. She acknowledged my apology and understood that I had said those things with the intention of causing her harm. We did not engage in a lengthy discussion, it was merely an apology and a brief exchange of pleasantries. I indicated that I would be returning home that weekend, but that she should not be present. I informed her that I would be returning home this weekend, but that she should not be present. Our interaction was largely courteous, but I made it apparent that I was indifferent about her whereabouts. I even suggested that she stay with her partner because it was what she wanted, anyway. However, she denied this suggestion and insisted that she wanted me back. She requested that we attempt to salvage the relationship, asserting that she had never engaged in such behavior before and was willing to do whatever was necessary to rectify the situation. I must acknowledge that I am inclined to revert to any point in the previous year or even to the most challenging periods in our lives. I informed her that I was unable to reconcile the circumstances that had transpired over the preceding year and that I was therefore unable to envisage a future together. I then posed a question regarding the number of occasions she had remained silent for an extended period. She then inquired as to whether I was genuinely interested in learning more, given that she was reluctant to engage in further harmful behavior. I simply stated that I needed to know, which prompted her to reveal that it had only occurred a few times initially. However, after approximately a month, it became a regular occurrence, including on weekends when I was away. Over the course of approximately 6 months, I was away from home for only 1 or 2 instances per week. I experienced feelings of nausea, so I silenced the phone to alleviate some of the discomfort. She engaged in sexual intercourse with him on more occasions within a year than we had in the previous 10 to 15 years, and possibly even more frequently than at the outset of our partnership. I was compelled to inquire further, seeking clarification on specific details such as the size and quality of the object in question. I was driven by a desire to understand the nature of their interactions and to ascertain whether there were aspects of our relationship that I was unable to perform. However, I reached a point where I could no longer tolerate the situation. I therefore took the initiative to persuade her to visit him this weekend, allowing me the opportunity to focus on the essential tasks of organizing my belongings. I lack a fixed location for the storage of my belongings. I have been awake and consumed a bottle of scotch. I must now attend to my parents and recuperate from the effects of the alcohol, so I have returned to the house to retrieve some belongings. Fortunately, she is not in sight. I am gathering some items. I am currently engaged in the process of gathering miscellaneous items that I had neglected to retrieve the previous weekend. These include various forms of documentation and personal effects. The pace at which this task is unfolding is more rapid than I had anticipated. To maintain a positive outlook, I am listening to some upbeat music and utilizing my AirPods. I have now proceeded to the basement and am in the process of packing a few select items. This task is challenging, but I am determined to persevere. I must persevere in the basement before I succumb to discouragement. Over the melodies, I can faintly hear water rushing in the pipes. It continues for a while before I realize it. I walk upstairs and hear the shower running. I am perplexed. I decide to make myself a cup of coffee. I proceeded to exit the residence and venture outdoors to my vehicle. I contemplated departing the premises by automobile but ultimately opted to remain in the driveway. The circumstances that have transpired have left me perplexed. I commenced composing a lengthy and irate text message but then elected not to transmit it as evidence of any kind, choosing instead to remain in my current location and await developments. I surmised that the other party would likely depart once more while I was outdoors. My recently installed neighbor approached and introduced himself after observing me standing outside smoking. I did not divulge any information to him but did endeavor to be cordial. As we were on the verge of parting ways, the garage door opened, and she stood behind her vehicle, demanding to speak with me. I was compelled to. Following the introduction of this new neighbor and my wife, there was minimal conversation. Even the new neighbor sensed the tension and departed. Once inside, I was still stunned and simply inquired about her purpose in being there. She stated that she was unable to check into her new residence until later and was at the gym once more. She required time to shower and purchase additional items, assuming that I would not object and that she could come and go without any issues. I remained stationary, contemplating the identity of this individual before me. After a brief and awkward apology, she advised us to refrain from hasty actions while emotions remained raw. She suggested that we consider seeking additional counsel. She suggested seeking additional counseling, stating that we still adore each other. I looked her in the eyes and simply answered, "No, please leave. I've got things to do, and you pledged to stay away." I informed her that her actions were the cause of the situation and returned to the basement. Thankfully, I am now sitting here typing this. While attempting to maintain composure, I have just heard the garage door open and close, indicating her departure. However, I remain somewhat disorganized. I am inclined to resume packing, yet my bourbon collection is a compelling distraction. I concede that I consumed one beverage earlier, and if I imbibe again at this early hour, it will undoubtedly lead to further disappointment. On Sunday, I continued packing following another night of inadequate rest. The experience was emotionally challenging, particularly as I was forced to confront memories, photographs, and items that we had selected together, including our wedding album and other items that evoked strong emotions that I was struggling to manage. However, I persevered and focused on what I considered to be the most important aspect of the situation. Unfortunately, one item struck me the hardest: a sealed container that contained our children's ashes. We had made the decision that if one of us or both of us died, we would combine our ashes in this container. The aforementioned urn contains the cremated remains of our children. We had previously considered scattering these at our preferred beach, but this option is no longer viable. I am uncertain as to the acceptability of my own desire to do so. I am aware that I will eventually have to discuss this with my partner, but I am unsure of the best way to broach the subject. I am reluctant to open the urn and separate the remains, as this would effectively mean that neither of us would have them. I am unsure as to the feasibility of this course of action. I will consult with my attorney once I have retained their services. I did not inform her of this because I had no confidence in her. I will provide an update on the situation. On Sunday evening, I will have almost finished packing what I intend to take with me for the time being. I wanted to have enough so that if I could not bear to return for a few weeks, I would be ready. I also picked up some significant keepsakes and paperwork. We had agreed that she would return after 9. Furthermore, I was disinclined to be present when she arrived. I resisted the urge to engage with electronic devices or the router, even when confronted with a spider. I felt that I was acting in a more mature manner than usual, thanks to the encouraging words and messages I received from a friend. It is now approximately 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, I proceeded to load the remaining items into my vehicle. As anticipated, she arrived, exhibiting visible distress, though not to the same extent as I was experiencing internally. She initiated a discussion regarding my apparent intention to depart once more and requested a brief conversation. I was already irritated by her presence and attempted to maintain composure, though I was aware of the difficulty. I informed her that I was not interested in engaging in further discussion. She informed me that I was late and that I needed to return in time to relieve my parents of their weekend duties. I had only a few minutes, but she could tell me anything crucial. If necessary, I could phone her while driving. She said she understood and wanted to discuss what occurred this weekend without making me furious. She claimed she spent the weekend alone, but I am unsure if she reflected on everything that happened and what she had done considerable damage to our relationship, and yet she was adamant that she loved me and always would. I have lost all trust in her and I am angry with her for inflicting such pain and suffering on me and for destroying the man who loved her unconditionally and was always there for her. I attempted to maintain a neutral expression and avoid any displays of emotion. However, I was unable to control my emotions and my eyes welled up with tears. However, I found it challenging to maintain my composure. I also failed to do so effectively. I did not offer much in the way of verbal responses. Instead, I simply listened and wanted to leave once she had expressed all that she needed to. I listened to her articulate a range of thoughts and emotions, including her rationale for engaging in this behavior for an extended period, her reasons for not stopping herself, and her perceptions of my lack of concern or infidelity. She assumed that I had been unfaithful for many years and that we had, despite everything, she was convinced that I was the only man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. She attempted to confess on several occasions, but she was aware that I would never accept her again if she revealed what she had done. She maintained that it was her own fault and that I was not at fault. She stated that she would seek counseling to gain a better understanding of why she had engaged in these behaviors for so long. The relationship was damaged because she had obtained all of the desired outcomes and believed that she could live without intimacy. She appeared to have accepted that. She even mentioned that I could be with other people if I wanted, which seemed to align with the behaviors of a person who was unfaithful to their partner. However, she then reinforced my suspicions by bringing up our argument from the Christmas before last, when she had become enraged because I was terrified of being near to her. Regarding the possibility of becoming pregnant again, she assumed that I had used in vitro fertilization as an excuse and that I had never truly desired a family, particularly because I was not interested in adoption. She was frustrated because she felt that there was a lack of connection and family in our lives, and she blamed me for preventing them from forming. She was enraged because she believed that I blamed her for our child losses and had lied about it. She also believed that I was upset with her for losing them. She was unable to forgive her for losing them. However, she professed to love me enough for both of us. While my mother was sick and out of the hospital, she assumed I was using it as an excuse to avoid her. It suddenly clicked in her thoughts and she knew her darkest worries had come true. She only wanted to feel loved. However, she assumed I didn't love her and had been lying the entire time. She had not previously considered the possibility of infidelity. Initially, she did not display any emotional distress in his presence. However, she subsequently expressed a desire for intimacy and informed him of her intention to remain with me. She asserted that she had never actually conversed with him about me, but I am now questioning whether she eventually formed a bond with him and admitted to experiencing something she hadn't felt in years. However, that was nothing compared to what we shared. She eventually admitted that it was over with him and hoped that I could forgive her. Discuss the possibility of finding a way forward, even if it means separating at this time. She inquired as to whether we might take some time before proceeding with a divorce. She acknowledges the wrongfulness of her actions but believes that I was dishonest about them for so many years and should provide her with the opportunity she deserves. I was unable to accept this proposal. I was further enraged when she yelled, "Do you seriously think you deserve a chance after a year of cheating?" I had previously expressed my innermost anxieties and engaged in therapy, but I had never anticipated this particular outcome. Consequently, I had kept these issues hidden. In recent years, I had striven to connect with her, to be romantic, and to engage with her, but she had barely acknowledged these efforts. I had assumed that my efforts to be vulnerable and disclose my innermost secrets would facilitate closeness and demonstrate my care for her. Instead, she cheated and significantly damaged my life. I was devastated, and I considered ending it all daily. She stated that she had considered doing so as well but had decided against it for my sake. I was unable to do so. I attempted to maintain composure and assertiveness, but the emotional distress I was experiencing manifested as a vocal outburst. Once I had regained my composure, I informed her that I would never be open and vulnerable with her or anyone else again. She exploited my concerns, perceived flaws, and honest disclosures to her detriment, leaving a lasting impact on my psyche. I was convinced that this revelation was the root cause of the subsequent events. This incident occurred subsequent to the aforementioned date. I was uncertain as to whether I should believe her assertion that this was her inaugural experience with such an act. I was already 45 minutes behind schedule, and I was aware that I needed to accelerate my pace on the highway. However, I was not in the optimal frame of mind to do so. I departed, vowing to reflect on her statements and to contact her if I had any further inquiries or comments. However, while driving, I was unable to shake the thoughts that led to this unfortunate turn of events. The subsequent journey was considerably more challenging than the first, following D-Day. I did not contact her again on that day. Now, in broad daylight, I am questioning whether my previous actions were the cause of this situation and if she has seen my social media posts and used them as evidence against me. However, I believe she is not particularly active on social media and I doubt she uses Reddit. There is no evidence that she has seen my posts on her phone, tablet, or in her. I am disconcerted to realize that I permitted my guard to be lowered with this individual and divulged information that I would not have shared had I not opened up. It is possible that I would not be in this situation had I maintained my composure. It seems that karma is at work, as I was contemplating leaving last fall. Now, I am merely going through the motions. This indicates that I should act in a joyful manner and never allow my guard to be lowered again. I felt as though I had ruined everything I owned. I am still working with my attorney and determining my subsequent actions, as I am uncertain of how I will be able to contact her following this incident. The reality is that she has effectively torn my heart out of my chest once more, destroying everything I was clinging to in order to keep going. My ex-partner engaged the services of a lawyer to manage our legal issues. You should contact them to discuss the matter further and decide how to address it. Please call. I extend my sincerest apologies for the distress I have caused you. I recognize that I do not merit an opportunity to speak before you render your judgment. It may be beneficial for us to allow time for things to settle down. I am aware that you likely hold me in higher regard than I deserve. I am interested in pursuing counseling, and I hope we can do so. Outside of work, I would appreciate the opportunity to communicate via telephone or text message. I will be occupied with work-related tasks and unable to respond to emails. I would like to inform you that I will be using your personal email address from this point forward. I would like to take this opportunity to reiterate the points I previously made. I hope you have access to a support system with whom you can discuss these issues. I understand the emotional distress you must be experiencing. I am aware that you consistently prioritize the needs of others over your own. Could you please provide me with an update on her progress with the move? I would also like to extend my love to her. I am truly sorry for the inconvenience. I will contact you shortly. I have recently come to realize that P's parents are facing the loss of their home, which they have occupied for over 50 years, and all of their memories. This is a situation that is particularly challenging for individuals with dementia. Such relocations result in individuals being moved from one place to another with little recollection of their previous circumstances. This necessitates a daily reminder to facilitate their recollection of past experiences. While efforts are made to navigate these transitions smoothly, the emotional toll can be significant. The process of determining what to maintain after reconsidering the conversation was particularly impactful. I initially understood the rationale behind maintaining separate email accounts for personal and professional communications. However, I later learned that she had been using her business phone for this purpose, while her personal phone had consistently remained free of such usage. I even updated her phone when she received a new watch last Christmas. Nevertheless, I acknowledge that I might have overlooked something, although I am now updating it. The time elapsed since my last update is approximately. It has been approximately 1 month since my last update on the disorganization of my personal life and of my wayward wife. I am posting this update because, while there have been improvements, there have also been setbacks. For a comprehensive account of the situation, I recommend reviewing my previous posts. In summary, my wife of over 25 years engaged in infidelity for almost a year while I was away caring for my elderly mother. On a positive note, my parents have been residing in a care facility for slightly over a month and seem to be adapting well. I visit them frequently and they are typically pleased to see me and recognize me. Additionally, I have been responsible for packing and selling their belongings, and we intend to finalize the real estate transaction this week. I have located a more suitable temporary accommodation. I am currently residing in a friend's apartment, which is conveniently located in close proximity to my place of work. Everything is progressing well, and I am contemplating the acquisition of an apartment in the near future. However, this structure is effective in the short term. I did serve her with divorce papers, but her lawyer reacted in a confrontational manner. Recently, I was required to address a maintenance issue at our former residence. While not particularly serious, it required immediate attention. Fortunately, she was not present when I arrived to handle it. I met with the contractor, resolved the issue, and planned to leave before she returned. It took several hours, but I was able to rearrange things and complete the task. However, this fortuitous turn of events proved to be short-lived. Later that day, I received a call from a physician informing me that she had been admitted to the hospital. As I remain her emergency contact and her husband, this development was not entirely unexpected. Prior to my arrival, she had contacted an ambulance, citing a potential heart attack. However, the diagnosis was ultimately a panic attack. She subsequently alleged that she had been experiencing persistent suicidal ideation. She was admitted for observation due to the presence of harmful thoughts. She has remained in the hospital since that time. I was required to contact her employer to inform them of her absence due to medical reasons. After speaking with the attending physician, I realized that I needed to visit her. The physician indicated that I could visit her, given her expressed desire for such a visit. However, I was instructed to maintain a non-confrontational demeanor. Given the circumstances, I was initially hesitant to visit, as I was unsure if my presence would be perceived as confrontational. I was also uncertain if I should visit at all, as I did not want to reinforce the idea that she was unfaithful. Despite these reservations, I still cared about her and was concerned about her well-being. She had previously sought mental health treatment and managed another chronic health issue. During challenging periods in her life, I provided comprehensive support and assistance to help her navigate these difficulties. However, I also considered the potential impact on our professional relationship. I consulted with a trusted friend and was advised to make the decision about whether or not to visit her. Additionally, I sought guidance from a legal professional after the initial incident. During several subsequent visits, I was advised to exercise caution and avoid making commitments or divulging information that could potentially be used against me. Prior to each visit, I was aware that individuals who have been unfaithful often use attempts to end relationships as a form of manipulation. However, given her history, I recognize that this may be a genuine and serious matter for her. I understand that I should not allow any circumstances to influence my actions. Her actions initially drew me in. I am committed to moving forward with my life, but I am also compelled to be there for her. It is frustrating because I am still experiencing these emotions and wish none of this had happened. However, it did, and I am now attempting to navigate the complexities that arise from seeing her in such a situation. Before you admonish me, I am unable to simply abandon her. It is not my nature. She does not have any other close friends. Her sole close friend lives far away and is currently struggling with a significant medical issue. Therefore, I informed her doctor and went to see her in the hospital the next day. When I arrived, she was in a state of distress. I provided her with some supplies. It was unclear whether this was the case, as she was still sleeping with N4 and monitors, which did not appear to be related to her mental state. I assumed it was dehydration, but seeing her sleep reminded me of how beautiful and serene she looked, much like the person I used to want. As I sat there watching her, all of my anger and I experienced a renewed sense of betrayal, yet I managed to maintain my composure. Eventually, she regained consciousness and was astonished to see me. She implored me to give her a hug and forgive her, but I informed her that my purpose was merely to ensure her well-being and express my concern for her. I was reluctant to engage in discussions about our relationship. Despite the emotional turbulence, we managed to maintain a civil and respectful demeanor throughout our interaction. However, she became overwhelmed with emotion and abruptly ended the conversation. During her visit to the gynecologist for STI tests and a checkup, an unexpected discovery was made. It is currently under investigation. I initially assumed she had contracted an STI. However, the diagnosis was much more serious: ovarian cancer. While I am not an expert, I am aware that this form of cancer is usually fatal. The form of cancer is typically fatal. I was compelled to leave the room for a brief period to compose myself. I was concerned that she might perceive the extent of my emotional distress. After regaining my composure, we engaged in a lengthy discussion. I ultimately decided to assist her in any way I could. Part of me was inclined to advise her to trust her beliefs. However, I made it clear that my decision was not influenced by our relationship. Given the circumstances, I felt compelled to extend the same support to her that I would have wanted to receive in her position. However, it is unclear whether my actions would have been as effective if the roles had been reversed. Additionally, her emotional distress was exacerbated by the timing of the news, which coincided with her birthday and the onset of divorce proceedings. It is as if a perfect storm of negativity has slammed her life. It almost seems like karma. She was overwhelmed and chose to end her life rather than confront me and this condition alone. She was losing everything and now faces the possibility of losing her life on top of that. She did not want me to bear the burden of her medical debts. She hoped that her life insurance and the house would provide me with a fresh start. I was able to persuade her that my sole intention was to encourage her to fight with all her might and to be there for her. I informed her that she was not the reason for her suicidal thoughts, and that she should not take her own life. I have been preoccupied with driving up and down the roads to work, visiting my parents in the hospital, sleeping with a friend, and now returning to our old house to get additional belongings have been relocated. The patient has been transferred to a standard room, as the attending physicians have determined that she is no longer a danger to herself. She has undergone further testing, and the exact stage of her cancer will be determined today. Based on the initial examinations, it is estimated to be at least stage 2B or lower. If it is not stage 4, the prognosis may be more favorable. However, if it is stage 4, the outlook is significantly more challenging. The forthcoming period will be challenging and brief. I am currently composing this text in the hospital cafeteria, awaiting the provision of additional results and information by the oncology department. I am the type of person who is willing to offer assistance to anyone, even if her actions have caused me to withdraw. I would be severely distressed if I were to withdraw, although I have experienced such feelings privately. I am attempting to maintain my composure for the benefit of, despite my natural inclination towards pessimism, we both maintain a positive outlook. The most probable scenario, assuming it is not a lost cause, is that she will require substantial emergency surgery and chemotherapy, in addition to care and assistance during her rehabilitation. I have consented to be present for her during surgery, chemotherapy, and rehabilitation, should that be the most favorable outcome. I have not explicitly informed her that I intend to move in and remain with her, although it seems probable that I will be obliged to do so. However, this does not alter my position regarding divorce. I have discussed the implications of this situation for our separation with my lawyer, and they have advised that we can still be regarded as separated for the time being. They have suggested that we classify this as an in. The separation of the domicile is contingent upon the fulfillment of certain conditions, the fulfillment of which would be challenging in any case. My additional concern is how I can prevent being held responsible for a portion of her medical debt as a result of this situation, which is likely to postpone our divorce proceedings. I was informed that we may modify our settlement agreement, but she would have to acknowledge that none of this is my responsibility. The question, therefore, is whether I can care for her through this period and avoid becoming emotionally. I have continued to live my life while engaged in this process. For those who remain interested, I have met with the physicians on several occasions. The tumors have progressed and spread, but they remain small and have not reached the bladder or other distant organs such as the liver. This makes treatment nearly impossible. She will have major operations and chemotherapy. I have already decided that I will support her in her fight regardless of what she does. I cannot simply abandon her to face this alone with no help. I am aware that some could argue that it is no longer my responsibility. However, I cannot be the cold-hearted person I once thought I was. I am aware that I am a compassionate individual, and I am not concerned with the opinions of others regarding my actions. Despite my support for her in this situation, I will proceed with our separation and divorce. Unfortunately, I will probably have to move back in temporarily I have decided to temporarily separate from my spouse to provide her with assistance. I have discussed this with my attorney and they have expressed understanding of my viewpoint. We may still consider this time apart as separate, provided that we do not engage in sexual intercourse. This is for a variety of reasons. Additionally, we must agree that she will not complicate the process, which seems to be her original intention. I will ensure that she understands that my support is contingent upon her not contesting or delaying the procedure. I will allow her a period of time to improve her situation. I recognize that bargaining with her life may be difficult, but everyone has in the coming days. She will have further biopsies and a significant surgical procedure. The treatment plan is aggressive, although it is preferable to halt the spread immediately. That is all I need to know, as the title suggests. Her adultery may have saved her life, as she would have discovered this too late otherwise. Therefore, I conclude that in this situation, one party can be said to have won. I appreciate everyone's remarks and recommendations. I understand they are motivated by support, but the final decision is mine. I simply want this chapter of my life to conclude. I am unable to continue feeling obligated. It would appear that attachments cause agony for me, although I accept responsibility for becoming involved in the first place. I will continue to monitor this account and may make modifications, but for the time being this is the path I must take. I have been at the hospital with WW since yesterday morning and it has been quite difficult, just like everything else. First and foremost, she is in a horrible state during surgery. She coded and had to be stopped because her blood pressure was out of control, among other concerns. The surgeon did remove most of the patient has been diagnosed with cancer, but not all of the tumor has been removed. She will require additional surgery, but the timing is uncertain. She also had a seizure last night, which caused additional damage and bleeding. Despite the lack of initial indication for further intervention, the surgical team performed another procedure to stop the internal bleeding. She underwent another surgery earlier this morning and has been in and out of consciousness. The medical team is taking all possible measures to prevent a stroke. The prognosis is unclear, and the patient has been in a state of acute distress for 2 days. The patient's condition has stabilized somewhat, but the underlying pathology remains a significant concern. While awaiting her initial surgical procedure, I accessed her work telephone and discovered a message from her extramarital partner, sent from an unidentified number several weeks prior. I observed that she had blocked his other telephone number, but I included their conversation as evidence in the message. He inquired about her well-being and expressed remorse for his conduct during their last encounter. There is a lengthy account of events that I will not elaborate on here, but in essence, I traced the individual in question and the situation escalated. He contacted her, and she consented to meet with him to avoid the legal problems occurred approximately 1 month ago. I observed her response to him, in which she stated that he was the biggest mistake of her life. She expressed regret for meeting him and requested no further contact. She even implored him not to reach out to ensure everyone's safety. I do not believe this information is relevant, but I discovered it independently, and she did not inform me of it. Therefore, I conclude that she still has secrets. I accessed her work emails and personal accounts and reviewed them extensively, including data from before last year. However, this did not reveal any unusual activity. Nevertheless, it does not alter my perspective. With regard to the divorce or providing assistance, I am simply expressing my frustration because the situation is currently chaotic. She may live or die without ever realizing the truth. I am aware of this, and it leads me to believe that she may still be lying to me. I am uncertain if we will ever have the opportunity to discuss this matter. At this juncture, it is of no consequence. I may conclude my posts, as nothing else matters if she is not living, has brain damage, or is in a worse condition than projected. I will continue to do whatever I can for her and hope for the best. However, I tend to expect the worst. My sole hope is to obtain sufficient rest before the end of the week. Therefore, I present the latest episode of my poorly produced program. The condition of WWE has fluctuated, but is currently declining. It is believed that she suffered a minor stroke, but she is still clinging to life and has shown slight improvement over the weekend. However, she is not yet out of the woods. Physicians are becoming more optimistic that she will recover, but she is still in a great deal of pain and is on very strong medications. She was taken out of intensive care, and she will most likely go into rehab before returning home on Thursday. My closest friend and M contacted me. We had not spoken since the incident occurred. I assumed she was aware and would always support WW. I left her a voicemail the night after WW's first operation. I informed her that WW might not make it through. I told her that if she wanted to see her, she should come as quickly as possible in case something bad happened. We were not particularly close, but we had been friends since our teens and attended college together. We had spent time together throughout holidays and on vacations. On Thursday, she called to express her regret at the situation and offered to visit WW. She inquired as to whether she could stay at the house, which I assumed meant she thought I still lived there. I informed her that she could stay and use the WW car as needed. I have been staying at the house part-time, so it is not completely empty, but not every night. I still experience discomfort in my own home. I agreed since she has always been a kind person and I know losing a close friend is difficult for her. On Thursday evening, I met her at the airport and we proceeded directly to the hospital. We discussed. The woman then proceeded to inform me of the circumstances surrounding the WY2 condition and the subsequent developments since the surgery. She finally revealed that she was aware of the situation between us, but stated that WW had only divulged the full extent of the information to her a few days prior to her initial hospitalization. This was when she received the news about the cancer and was served with divorce papers. She informed me that they had not conversed extensively during the previous year, although she believed that this was due to WW's struggles in coping with the news about her own medical condition. She further stated that she had not been adept at dealing with the possibility of losing her closest friend. The most perplexing aspect of this revelation was that she had confided in WW stated that her husband was unfaithful and that they were attempting to resolve the issue. She believed that the infidelity was merely emotional in nature and that he had developed a crush on someone at work, but had not acted upon it. Eventually, he recognized the potential consequences of his actions and returned to her. According to her, I did not offer much in the way of advice. I advised her to verify everything he was saying. I had not seen any text messages between them, but since we are both over 50, we are probably more inclined to communicate by phone than by text. This was an ironic and disrespectful act on her part. She was also offering advice to WW on how to approach her husband about the affair and handle their marriage counseling. She was helping her set boundaries and demand the respect she deserved, etc. She informed me that they argued frequently when she confronted WW about everything. She was unsure if they could remain friends after discovering how deceitful WW had been to both of us. She even admitted to cursing her out and saying that she deserved whatever consequences she faced in the divorce. This is surprising because M is not the type to use foul language. She is quite religious and proper. WW attempted to contact him on several occasions, but M ignored the calls. This was also the reason why she did not answer my initial call. She believed that I was attempting to involve her more in the situation. However, when EM heard my voicemail, she realized that she could not avoid contact with WW without risking involvement in a potentially contentious situation. She did not want their final words to be during a heated argument. Therefore, she called me to arrange a visit to the hospital. We spent a significant amount of time together this weekend. However, I can assure you that our interaction was not in any way inappropriate. MEM shared more information. Following her visits with WW, we engaged in lengthy discussions until late at night. It was a positive experience, as she did not exert any pressure to remain together. However, it was evident that, with each visit, her understanding of the situation grew. Last night, MEM made a surprising revelation. She informed me that DW had requested a conversation with me regarding the topic of DNR, do not resuscitate, and the subsequent actions to be taken in the event of a deterioration in her condition. W was uncertain as to whether the deterioration would be so severe that it would be impossible to maintain her life support. She also expressed concern about the potential for her condition to reach a point of unbearable suffering or significant disabilities. She expressed a desire to end her life. W inquired as to whether he should persuade me to allow her to die if the time came. I inquired as to whether, in the event that I was unable to cope with the outcome, he should attempt to convince me. I am unsure of the circumstances that would be legally permitted in this case, other than being brain dead. This evening, I intend to discuss the situation with her. However, I am uncertain as to what I should say. I am the type of person who I adhere to the principle of not prolonging someone's suffering. In the appropriate circumstances, I would likely make the optimal decision. However, I am unable to commit to anything more than that. I cannot be certain that my actions are solely driven by a desire to end the pain, even in a medically appropriate scenario. I anticipate experiencing significant guilt indefinitely. I will also discuss this with my IST. A follow-up is scheduled for later in the week. Prior to her departure, I inquired of her friend M whether she would be amenable to assuming the role of medical power of attorney for my wife. She is contemplating the possibility. I will also solicit the assistance of a close relative, despite their distance, although I cannot guarantee their participation. I will refrain from making any decisions except those pertaining to legal matters. I have briefly consulted with my lawyer and we have scheduled a meeting. The appointment is scheduled for tomorrow. However, tonight I will inform her that I understand her wishes, but I am unable to agree to them at this time. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you found this essay enjoyable, please like it and subscribe if you have not already done so. If you have a story to share regarding your own or someone else's experience, please do not hesitate to contact me.